Good morning, Bournemouth fans. Hope you're doing well this Saturday morning. And as Cherries fans have a debate about what's going to happen this summer with departures and recruitment, Bournemouth caught everyone off guard this morning, swooping to sign the ex-Brentford midfielder Emiliano Marcondes. The playoff-winning XB is the first signing of the Scott Parker era. And look, what a week it's been. It was last Monday where we announced the Parker news. Everyone knew it was going to happen, right? But then today we've announced this morning, there was this cryptic tweet from AFC Bournemouth with the Danish flag attached to it. We all thought, what's going on? Is it going to be a Phil Bill contract extension? But no, a new signing. And if you don't remember him from the playoff second leg against us, he had a rather good game, having a hand in all the Brentford goals. But what else do we know about the Danish dynamo? Reminiscent of Philip Billing, he's played in a variety of positions, but what is his best? Well, to chat about it, we have got the one and only Benjamin Bloom from the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I just realised my Pepsi Max is cherry Pepsi Max, so
it's almost like you knew.
I am with no, absolutely. During these Euros, I don't know anything. I haven't known what day it is for about the last 4 weeks or whatever it is. But yeah, this sounds like an interesting one for Bournemouth, doesn't it?
It really does. And look, we always think that we know a lot about other teams in the Championship. Of course, Brentford got promoted to the Premier League. And first things first, I'm sort of wondering, why would he leave Brentford, or was it always on the cards that he was going to leave the club?
It was always on the cards that he was going to leave the club. So Marcondes, and I don't want to rain on anyone's parade, he's like the dictionary definition of a luxury player. If you can fit him in to your team and have others perhaps do a little bit of running for him and get him on the ball in dangerous areas, he's really good, as you've seen. And he's almost like a real big game player as well, because basically in the last two playoff campaigns for Brentford, and going back further than that, when the lockdown happened, he was the man for Brentford towards the end of that season. And I dare say one of these signings, which I call Richard Wright syndrome, which is a very old reference of when Richard Wright, the Ipswich keeper, played brilliantly against Arsenal, saved everything, and then Arsenal went and signed him. And he took Fulham apart in a game, obviously, that Scott Parker was managing at Craven Cottage towards the end of that season. Yeah. And then very good in the playoffs. Obviously, ultimately, Fulham and Scott Parker beat Brentford. But then when we went into last season, it was very much a case of they brought in Vitaly Janelt, Brentford, and it was very much Janelt, Jensen, Norgard, De Silva. Marcondes was like the fifth choice, basically, on the basis that he's not going to sit there for 90 minutes in that Brentford style and buzz about and circulate the ball. But I'll repeat, if you put him in a dangerous area at Championship level and put him in a position to succeed, very, very useful player. And as you mentioned in the playoffs this season, very, very important. I can't remember the exact numbers, but certainly was involved in key passes and goals and assists. And I think all of the games other than the first one down at Bournemouth.
What does this say to you about Bournemouth's intentions this season? Because apparently there are a number of other clubs rumoured to be interested. He's obviously bought into what we're trying to do. And, we were all concerned that we had one shot at the Premier League, but it almost looks like we're taking a second spin at it, especially with Scott Parker, which I think it's a longer term project. However, he's obviously bought into, Scott Parker very briefly. I don't know how long this has been on the cards, but it's a signing that maybe signals AFC Bournemouth's intentions, maybe.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, because if I was a Bournemouth fan, yes, he's a good player. He is, and again, I don't want to cause any angst amongst Bournemouth fans, because I've got a good relationship with them. He is a reserve from a player from a team that got promoted last season, and he's a free transfer right at the end of his contract as well. So in terms of intent for Bournemouth, if the intent is to bring in good players and get the most out of them for not a lot of money, then it's a good signing. Were I a Bournemouth fan and I was looking for intent, you would you would like to see a fee paid for somebody perhaps. But let's be honest, this is a player that's just got promoted from the league that you're now trying to get promoted from. So clearly a good player. You would know far more than I about the, financials and reports that lots of money was owed on the back end, and then Ake, Wilson, Ramsdale, out they all go. And I remember sitting with the Norwich fans, Sam, and saying, Bournemouth, the equivalent of what they've done is you selling Pukki, Aarons and Buendia. And you wouldn't have got promoted if you'd done that. And they sold Ramsdale, Wilson and Ake. So it just depends how much the finances have stabilised. I mean, you tell me, will they be spending fees on players? Will Danjuma be sold? Will Billing be sold?
Well, I'm pretty sure Danjuma is going to leave. There are rumours with Wolfsburg and Lille, and it's pretty certain. Yes, he's in the training photos at the moment, but I can't see how we would retain him. I think Philip Billing, towards the start of last season, there was interest from a couple of clubs. CSKA was one of them, actually, apparently. And it looked like his head was being turned. But then Woodgate seemed to find his ideal position by playing him more advanced. And he seemed to enjoy his football more. So a lot of us were actually hoping that tweet this morning cryptically from AFC Bournemouth was actually a contract extension. So we would love to keep hold of him. Whether we will or not remains to be seen. And it is going to be interesting just to see what happens from here on in, because we are expecting a lot of transfer activity. Now, tell me, with Marcondes, rumour has it that he's fairly injury prone. Is that right?
I mean, he had injury troubles. I always have an issue with labelling football players injury prone, because often it's totally unfair, isn't it? And their impact injuries and whatnot. He did miss time last season because of injury, but injury prone, I'm not so sure. Look, he's obviously going to be a player that gets tackled a lot because of the nature of his game, and gets hit a lot, basically. And I'm sure there's instructions from certain managers with players like Marcondes of make yourself known in the fairest way you can to defenders. But no, I wouldn't label him injury prone. No, I think the first tweet I got when I retweeted your guys' announcement was more about consistency than injury proneness. But again, we've talked about it with this type of player. You do have to make some. I watched Switzerland play last night, and have got Xherdan Shaqiri, and you have to have some players do some running for him, and Marcondes would be that type. But consistency, maybe. But if you're right, and there's possibly a Danjuma on the way out. Look, he's not a winger. He's not. He's not going to play one of those positions. But Parker likes to play rotation in midfield in a similar way than Brentford did. It's not going to be the 4-2-3-1 that Woodgate was playing, and very much right. Billing, score from 10, Danjuma, rip everybody down the side, and Stanislas or whoever's on the other side. So there might be a slight change in sort of shape and strategy, I think, that would maybe fit Marco. I suspect the plan is that he starts the games, and you're looking for output, 30 plus games, and goals and assists from him.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So, I mean, Brentford fans, do you get the impression that they're sad to see him go? Or, is it something, just because it was on the cards for so long that it's something they've had to come to terms with? Or is it not really a big loss for them? It sounds like it's not.
They're the wrong set of fans to talk about being sad to see. They sell their best player every season and then just sign better ones, don't they? Their recruitment's superb. No, they won't be sad to see him go on the basis of what he would have contributed in the Premier League. Look, for goodness sake, they've got two midfielders in a squad that's going to play a Euro 2020 semi-final tonight in the Denmark squad ahead of Marcondes. They'll obviously be sad because in big moments for them, when they were trying to get out of the Premier League and out of the Championship, and ultimately did get out of the Championship, he was heavily involved. But look, Sam, there's always players who a team gets promoted And I mean, look at someone like Knockaert.
Yeah.
Always ends up coming back down and, work in the Championship. I remember Barry Douglas get promoted with Wolves and then immediately was sold back to Leeds. There's always players who are, rightly or wrongly, ruthlessly or not, always players who are, not utilised in the Premier League. And I think Marcondes and Dalsgaard as well, one of their, who's their captain, was they were always going to leave. And there's this long-term sort of planning at Brentford. So I think that they won't be too bothered. They've got 100 million quid TV money coming in now, so I'm sure they'll be investing some of that. But don't see that as a slight on the player and his capability of operating in the top six for a Year 2 parachute team that will be expecting to finish in at least the playoffs. Yeah.
So if you're a Bournemouth fan, where's your excitement level at after this signing? From 0, not excited at all, to 10, we're going to win the league. I mean, where should we be in terms of our joy of signing Emiliano?
Well, far be it for me to tell anyone how excited they should be. I wouldn't be. Look, if I was a Bournemouth fan and you signed Rhian Brewster on loan from when Swansea got him, I would be at a 9 or a 10 because I would be, wow, this guy's going to score 25 goals. What it is it's a very interesting one. It could be a really fun one, a really clever pickup that is a viable top level Championship player. If I had to put a number on it, we're a 7 or an 8 because it could be one of those ones you look back and you see signings in the past, and I know Bournemouth have had some expensive busts, haven't they? Particularly in the Premier League era, where you look back and say, God, look at the value we got out of that player. And then, you compare it to a Jordan Ibe or I don't know what the number one go-to flop signing at Bournemouth would be. You'd be able to tell me.
Well, that's always the one that was referred. And, before last season, it was going to be Dom Solanke as well. But fortunately, he turned up with a few goals, but we do expect more from him.
Okay.
More selfish, but that's the ilk of the player, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think it's a fun one, but Sam, it needs to be supplemented with others. And I'm always of the opinion where I think fans shouldn't be scared of a Danjuma going because I had a great conversation. Sorry to bring this back to Ipswich. I had a great conversation with Kieran Dyer, who was Ipswich's best player by a mile. They sold him and signed 4 players and got promoted the next season. That's always my go-to. And Kieran Dyer himself said, was I a better player than those guys? Yes. But if you put me against 4 of them on a football pitch, I couldn't beat them in a 5-a-side. Four players are better than 1. So perhaps what we might have to see from Parker is, and they'll get a hefty whack for Danjuma if he goes. Yeah. I think the real 8, 9, 10 excitement signings are probably to come. You would hope this is the best case scenario for Bournemouth. If, as you suggest, I mean, what would the number be? 30, 40 million quid for Danjuma?
I mean, I'd love 40. I think even 25 to 30 possibly. He had a patchy start of the season and his performances weren't particularly great, but he was backing it up with numbers. But then towards the second half of the season, when AFC Bournemouth's form improved, he was playing better as well. He was also doing a bit more defensive work too. But some of his goals were sublime. And I think he could do a job in the Premier League. But 25, 30 million, I would be absolutely delighted with that.
Well, Buendia was 35 million, wasn't he? And Buendia was best player in the league last year, and Danjuma was in everybody else's team of the season on the other wing, wasn't he? Yeah. So you're in the. I think you're in the kind of right ballpark. I mean, look at us. You pull numbers out of the air, telephone numbers, aren't they? But
no idea. Well, it seems to be that like AFC Bournemouth and Scott Parker. I certainly hope it's a project that's more long term than what last season was. I think it was a bit of a stopgap, really. And obviously, Scott Parker on a 3-year plan. He seems to have a plan from what I've heard. So it seems to be good news for us. And look, Emiliano Marcondes, he's a big game player, isn't he? Scored in the playoff final, and maybe that's the type of player that Bournemouth need.
He's definitely that. That's the one thing. Yeah, that's his scene. I mean, insert cliches about wet Wednesday nights at Stoke, but balance that out with he was the go-to guy, and there was some good players. I mean, some good players in that Brentford team that he ultimately got in ahead of, and it was just very odd. It was like we're a year removed from them failing. It's they're going back to Marcondes. Oh, okay. And it worked as well. So, but look, I mean, there's lots of good players in that Brentford team. But yeah, very much a big game player, very much a flair player. Take risks on the ball. Look, he's going to give the ball away, trying to complete key passes and through balls and taking shots. But and this has been an accusation of Parker's. Do you want the players to just circulate the ball ad infinitum and not create anything? Or as the great Neil Warnock says, do you want to see shots and chances?
Yes,
and,
exactly.
people, there's a balance, isn't there? So Parker certainly needs players like that, because sort of using the example of Tom Kearney at Fulham, who's at championship level, just a beast of a sort of attacking midfielder. There was a bit of a sense that he was just dropped in and what's the right word? Not dumbed down, but he was used differently.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Really, really interesting. Really, really excited to see how it all goes. Before you go, tell people about your excellent YouTube channel. I'm sure that many Bournemouth fans will already be subscribed to you already. And if not, click the card at the top of the screen, because you can go and see his channel now. But yeah, tell us a little bit more about it.
Oh, I mean, it's excellent. You've just said it. You just said it yourself, haven't you? No, so it's the Benjamin Bloom football channel. Basically, you can see the Ipswich scarf. Started doing YouTube, very much like yourself, Sam. And then Ipswich very cleverly managed to get themselves relegated out of the championships, which was jolly helpful. So we just kept it. We switched it up as a championship channel. So we're here every single week, previews, reviews, watch-alongs. And look, I would never claim to know as much as, I'm going to point that way, there we go, know as much as the likes of Sam about a Bournemouth. But what I can give you is sometimes fans get in the bubble, don't they? And sometimes you need to step out of the bubble and the echo chamber of your club. And sometimes perception is reality. And what you can get on my channel is the perception of the whole league, with that we say, please leave your bias at the door. I'm not interested in anybody's tribal allegiances. We call it down the middle. So it's a good fun place. We've got plenty of Bournemouth fans come and see this. And it should be a productive season for Bournemouth. Year 2 parachute team, good players there. A manager that got promoted last time he was here as well. So well worth coming over and getting the neutral view.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. Thank you for coming on.
Pleasure. Anytime, fella.
Brilliant stuff. And let us know what you think about the new signing. Put it in the comments below, and make sure you, of course, like this video as well. Tomorrow at 8 o'clock, we're live with the next episode of our summer series, where no doubt we'll be talking about a bit of the Euros. We'll be talking about this signing today. Many more things at AFC Bournemouth, including Simon Francis working under Richard Hughes. Is that so that when Eddie gets a job and Richard goes, there can be a smooth transition? We think so. Let us know, and we'll see you tomorrow at 8. But until then, up the Cherries.